We are discussing on the topic J.S. Mill, Western political thinker, and today we are going to talk about his theory of utilitarianism. We know that utilitarianism was given by Jeremy Bentham. He is known as the founder of utilitarian theory. Now we are going to see that what Mill has talked about this. John Stuart Mill's father, James Mill, was friend of Bentham, and Bentham is founder of this theory, utilitarianism. So, what is the mainly this theory? This is a normative, moral, and ethical theory developed in the late 18th century by Bentham. So, according to this act, is that right if any act is right if it tends to promote happiness or pleasure, and wrong if it tends to produce unhappiness or pain, not just for the performer of the action but also for everyone else affected by it. तो इससे हम लोग क्या समझते हैं व्हाट इज द थ्योरी यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म का क्या है थ्योरी ये है कि कोई भी काम जिससे हमको खुशी मिलती है दैट गिव्स अस प्लेजर दैट इज राइट और अगर वो काम जिससे हम लोग को पेन मिलता है जिससे हम लोग को खुशी नहीं मिलती है दैट डज नॉट कम्स अंडर दिस थ्योरी और ये खुशी बस सिर्फ हमारे लिए नहीं होनी चाहिए सबके लिए होने चाहिए बस हम खुश हो रहे हैं अकेले नहीं सबको खुशी मिलनी चाहिए दैट इज ओनली दिस थ्योरी socio-economic and political decisions should be taken on the principle of greatest happiness of the greatest number. This is also his principle. ये पूछा जा सकता है this whose principle is greatest happiness of greatest pleasure. Bentham's that greatest happiness of all, welfare of all, not only of one person single but of all. Utilitarianism is a type of consequentialism और theological theory. अब इसका क्या मतलब है consequentialism? Consequentialism is that means by what we can say consequentialism is that by hook or by crook you have to achieve the end. Means अगर 10 लोग हैं और एक की जान अगर जा रही है और 9 की जान अगर उससे बच सकती है देन यू विल फोकस ऑन दैट सेविंग ऑफ 9 people and killing of one single people. This is so utilitarian is related to this kind of principle only. Utilitarian has evolved from hedonism. Hedonism is only that related to pleasure, that pleasure should be given to everyone, everyone should achieve pleasure. For example, pleasure किस type का deciding menu in a restaurant by the head of the family for the family. There are 5 people in a family, 3 of them wants to eat some continental, 2 of them wants to eat Chinese and one Indian. But since 3 of them is majority, so the greatest good of all, so continental food would be ordered then. In public policy also making, the policies should be made by the governor for government, not for only the benefit of the officials but for the benefit of the whole society. So what are the dilemmas in this theory? Should we kill one to save many lives? 9 की जान बचाने के लिए एक को मारना क्या वो सही है? All pleasure equal? सबके लिए प्लेजर इक्वल होता है क्या? और क्या हम लोग सिर्फ प्लेजर के लिए जीते हैं? तो हमारे और एनिमल में क्या अंतर रह जाता है? कैन वी इक्वेट प्लेजर एंड पेन ऑफ वन पर्सन विथ अदर? हमको अगर बुक पढ़ के खुशी मिल रही है क्या दूसरे को भी बुक पढ़कर खुशी मिल रही है? These are some of the dilemmas of this theory. Now we come to the utilitarian theory of J.S. Mill. मिल ने क्या कहा है? मिल ने कहा है that happiness is the sole end of human action and the promotion of it the test by which to judge of all human conduct. Now he has used happiness in place of the term pleasure. Like Bentham has used pleasure, but Mill has used that happiness. मतलब खुशी खुशी ही सबसे हमारा गोल क्या है? What is our end? what we want to achieve? happiness. happiness ही है जिसके लिए सब लोग जीते हैं happiness को achieve करने के लिए. Now he has given his proof also for this principle. He has given three type of uh, claims. Desirability. desirability is happiness is desirable as an end and goal of all human being. सबको खुशियाँ चाहिए ही, और सबको खुशी किस तरह से मिलती है? By doing the things, and that can be different for every person. Exhaustiveness, nothing but happiness is desirable as an end. Now this this is something that we have to think, that he has told that nothing, और कुछ है ही नहीं, बस हम लोग को खुशी ही चाहिए. Why means main aim, main goal of our life is happiness, and that is pleasure, means happiness. If we are studying for what? To get good marks, to get admission, we are studying, that is our pleasure. If someone is cooking food for what? So that everybody would appreciate it, not only eat but also appreciate it, and that will of course give happiness and pleasure. Impartiality, each person's happiness is equally desirable, not only a single person but each one's happiness is equally desirable and important. Min claimed that all desirable things are desirable either for pleasure inherent in themselves or as means of promotion of pleasure and prevention of pain. All the actions that we are doing, that is for our own benefit, for gaining pleasure, and so that we can stay away from unhappiness and pain. Now he has also given his proportionality principle. Action are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness. ना व्हाट इज दिस थ्योरी? जो भी एक्शन हम लोग करते हैं, जितने भी हमारे रेशियो में कोई भी एक्शन कर रहे हैं जिससे हम लोग को खुशी मिलती है, वो सारे चीज़ें सही है, और वही चीज़ें अगर अगर गलत हम लोग को पेन देता है, अगर हम लोग को हर्ट करता है, तो वही सारी चीज़ें गलत हो जाती है. सो इज हैप्पीनेस सेम एज प्लेजर? लेट्स सी how Mill is different from utilitarian theory of Bentham. As Bentham has told that greatest happiness of all, greatest welfare or of all, great welfare, खुशी, सबका खुशी सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है. इक्वल क्वांटिटी में सबको खुशी मिलनी चाहिए अकॉर्डिंग टू बेंथम. तो मिल started with the position that happiness is same as pleasure. By happiness, he is intended pleasure and the absence of pain by unhappiness, pain and privation of pleasure. This is simple theory that happiness means pleasure and absence of pain. Unhappiness is full of pain. So, however, Mill has departed from Bentham's account, which holds that if two experience action contain equal quantities, अगर दो चीज़ें, दो कोई भी काम है, मूवी देखना और बुक पढ़ना, हम लोग को equal happiness दे रहा है, equal time के लिए दे रहा है, then that is pleasure and they are equally valuable. It would be absurd, but Mill has told that it would be absurd that while in estimating all other things, quality is considered as well as quantity. बेंथम ने क्या कहा? बेंथम ने कहा है कि ओनली द क्वांटिटी मैटर्स, मतलब इक्वल अमाउंट में क्वांटिटी जो है वो मैटर करता है. हर एक चीज़ जो भी हम लोग करते हैं, सबसे हम लोग को खुशियाँ ही मिलती है. हम लोग ऐसा ही काम करते हैं जिससे खुशियाँ मिलता है. मूवी देखना, बुक पढ़ना, गाना गाना, नाचना, हर चीज़ से हम लोग को इक्वली खुशी मिलती है. बट इन टर्म्स ऑफ मिल, व्हाट ही हैज़ टोल्ड, ही हैज़ डिफरेंशिएटेड प्लेजर ऑल्सो, मीन्स क्वालिटी एंड क्वांटिटी. Means now some can get happiness by watching movie, but the other one cannot get happiness by watching movie. He may to do sightseeing. He may want to visit places like ghat and all, then sitting in the ghat can give him pleasure, but other person get pleasure in watching movies. So he has differentiated pleasure also. Mm. So Mills held that pleasure of all intellect, of feeling and imagination, and of moral sentiment. Now Mill has also talked about that physical happiness and mental happiness, and he has given more importance to the mental happiness. When you are using your mind and you are producing something like scientists, or you are doing some of the effective work in which your mind is being used, then that is a higher level of pleasure. Mental and intellectual pleasure are among the higher pleasure. For physical pleasure, pleasure gained in activity are of higher quality than those gained passively. In physical also, he has told that if you are running and you are doing any kind of sports like badminton, that is giving you higher level of pleasure in place of just laying down and reading a book. You are laying down and getting your pleasure, then that is inferior kind of pleasure. Now he has differentiated in pleasure also. खुशी भी जो मिलती है वो, उसमें भी उन्होंने क्या कर दिया, डिफरेंशिएशन कर दिया कि अगर लेट के आप बस लेट के बस लेटे हुए हैं, then that is a pleasure, that is a very low kind of pleasure. But if you are running and you're playing and some physical work is there being happening, like swimming and all, then that is more superior kind of pleasure. He insisted that human beings were capable of intellectual and moral pleasure, which was superior to the physical one that they share with animal. So he also said that that only that intellectual and using our mind moral pleasure are superior to then the physical ones. Now this is the very famous quote of J.S. Mill that is that is always being asked in your paper. So you should remember this also. You should remember this quote. It is better to be human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It is better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. And if the fool or the pig is of a different opinion, it is because they only know their own side of the question. The other party in comparison knows both sides. व्हाट इज दिस दैट अगर एक बुद्धिमान इंसान है जो कि डिससेटिस्फाइड होके भी उसका डिससेटिस्फाइड होना भी बेहतर है एक बुद्धू इंसान के सेटिस्फाइड होने से। एक सॉक्रेट्स का डिससेटिस्फाई होना सही है एक बुद्धू इंसान के सेटिस्फाई होने से। क्यों? बिकॉज द अदर वन, द फूल वन, उसको बस वही पता ही मे ओनली नो द फिजिकल प्लेजर्स, he may only do the swimming and all, and he get happiness by doing that only. He has not explored only the mental happiness, the moral and intellectual thinking he has not done only. So he is satisfied by his own kind of happiness. He is thinking that मैं तो खुश हूँ, मुझे तो ये करना आता है, मुझे तो इससे खुशी मिलती है, but he has never explored only the other kind of pleasures. So that's why he has told that it is better to be human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. Now, Savine has also given view that Mill's transformative criticism of classical utilitarianism. Mill was supporter of utilitarianism, but he has differentiated and give a very big differentiated he has done between quality and quantity. He differentiated between happiness and pleasure. He also replaced the quantitative approach of Bentham by a qualitative, moral, and ethical human approach. Now, idealistic, you can say, he has given some kind of idealistic theory. He differentiated from the public sphere, and he has regulated by what? By morality. Now we come to the critical evaluation of Mill's utilitarianism theory. Why he is being criticized? Because mainly because why? Because he has abandoned the hedonism, the main theory जो क्लासिकल जो थ्योरी था यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म का, उससे उन्होंने क्या किया? He changed the theory. Mainly he has changed the classical utilitarianism theory, and he has moved towards a eudaimonistic or perfectionistic kind of theory. Perfectionistic, perfectionist theory, that a human should be perfect. He should be morally and intellectually very much intelligent. He must think logically, and he must differentiate between his happiness also, between his pleasure also. And by happiness they claim that Mill does not mean only sensual pleasure, physical pleasure, but rather than that flourishing a human idealistic life, flourishing human morally and intellectually. So that who will decide which is higher pleasure? Huh? There is no one to decide the higher pleasure. Na? Let's talk about that. The higher pleasure the people who are experiencing higher pleasure should be called superior than the other one. But who is to decide that? There is no one to decide this. Now he has also contradicted with his own theory, own liberty theory, the harm principle. He has contradicted how liberty and individual autonomy is not infringed by dictate of higher pleasure. लाइक जो उन्होंने बोला था कि इंडिविजुअल के पास खुद का लिबर्टी है, खुद का ऑटोनोमस है, एंड नो वन हैज द राइट, द पावर टू इंटरफेयर इन द हिज हैप्पीनेस, देन हाउ वी कैन से दैट हायर pleasure is being, who will dictate that higher pleasure is being given? There is no one to say, no one to judge that what is higher power and what is not higher power. So pleasure, so like this there is a contradiction between his own theory only. If a man has having liberty to decide his own happiness, then who will dictate that what is higher pleasure? How absolute liberty in the sphere of self regarding action does not dilate greatest happiness pleasure principle, greatest happiness of all principle. If there is self regarding action, he has talked that those action that does not affect any other's life, that is only affecting our life and giving happiness to all. Then again he has contradicted with this theory, greatest happiness principle theory, that greatest happiness of all, everyone should get equal amount of happiness. Then why liberty and individuality such vital human interests that none should harm it? Do they give utmost pleasure? Liberty and individuality of every person has their own liberty and everyone has their own pleasures. So do that actually give higher pleasure? And of course is contradicted with the utilitarian theory. So nudging individual, pushing individual towards getting higher pleasure, and so there to achieve their self mastery, enjoy higher pleasure. Then if a state is pushing, if in place of cinema halls there are moral and intellectual teaching, then how can we get the main happiness is decided, then happiness is decided by the state only if other people, then this is moving, then this system is moving towards what? Totalitarian theory. And so this theory is criticized in this way. So that was all for today's class. Thank you so much.